The sound of crystal glasses clinking filled the elegant dining hall of one of Chicago's most luxurious restaurants. Every table was occupied by wealthy businessmen, politicians, and celebrities dressed in expensive suits and glittering jewelry. Then, in a single unforgettable moment, the silence shattered. A Millionaire CEO pushed away his untouched dinner, looked directly at the young waitress serving him, and publicly embarrassed her in front of everyone. Guests turned their heads. Cameras from nearby diners quietly pointed toward the scene. The young woman stood frozen, her hands trembling, yet she refused to cry. No one in that room could have imagined that the quiet waitress they were laughing at was carrying a secret powerful enough to change every life in that restaurant before the night ended. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is stronger than pride and that everyone deserves a second chance, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel for more heart-touching stories that remind us humanity still exists. Her name was Grace Walker, a 26-year-old waitress who worked double shifts in downtown Chicago. Every morning before sunrise, she visited a small nursing home outside the city where her grandmother Margaret lived after suffering a severe stroke. Grace paid every medical bill herself, often skipping meals so her grandmother could receive better care. Few people knew about her life because she believed struggles did not need an audience. Her smile remained gentle, even when exhaustion hid behind her eyes. The elegant restaurant where she worked became her second home, although many wealthy customers treated employees as though they were invisible. That evening the restaurant welcomed one of its most important guests, Michael Carter, a millionaire CEO famous for building a successful technology company. Business magazines praised his intelligence, but many employees whispered about his cold personality. Michael expected perfection from everyone around him. As soon as he entered, managers rushed to satisfy every request before he even spoke. Grace happened to be assigned to his private dining section because another waitress had become sick moments earlier. Everything seemed normal until a small accident changed the atmosphere. As Grace carefully placed a dinner plate on the table, another server accidentally bumped into her shoulder. The plate tilted, causing a few drops of sauce to land near Michael's expensive watch. It barely touched him, yet his expression immediately hardened. He stood from his chair, attracting the attention of nearly every customer inside the restaurant. Without considering the obvious accident, he spoke loudly enough for the entire room to hear. His disappointment quickly became public humiliation. Grace felt every eye staring at her while whispers spread across the room. Her face turned pale, but instead of defending herself, she quietly apologized and reached for a clean napkin. Many guests shook their heads, believing another hardworking waitress had simply become the victim of an impatient millionaire. Grace continued serving the remaining tables despite the embarrassment. She refused to leave early because losing even one night's pay would make paying her grandmother's medical expenses even more difficult. Behind her calm expression, however, her heart felt shattered. She wondered how easily someone could judge another person's worth without knowing anything about their life. Unknown to everyone in the restaurant, Grace carried something inside her handbag that she had planned to deliver after her shift ended. It was an old leather folder given to her by her late grandfather shortly before he passed away. For years it remained untouched because Grace believed it contained only family memories. Earlier that week, while organizing old belongings, she finally opened it carefully. Hidden between faded photographs and handwritten letters was a sealed envelope addressed specifically to the board of Carter Technologies. Curious and confused, Grace contacted the family lawyer listed inside the documents. The lawyer nearly dropped the phone after reading the contents. Decades earlier, Grace's grandfather Thomas Walker had quietly invested his life's savings into a tiny startup founded by a struggling young engineer. Instead of demanding immediate profits, Thomas had simply believed in the young man's dream. That struggling engineer eventually became Michael Carter's late father. The investment agreement included an unusual clause stating that if the Walker family was never fully compensated, ownership rights would remain legally protected until the final obligation was fulfilled. The lawyer's investigation uncovered something shocking. During several corporate restructurings after Michael inherited the company, one crucial document had been overlooked. According to federal records, Grace remained one of the company's largest undisclosed shareholders. Her ownership was completely legal, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and no one inside Carter Technologies had realized the mistake for years. Grace never intended to use the discovery for personal revenge. In fact, she had arranged a private meeting with Michael after her shift simply to return the documents and seek a peaceful resolution. But after the humiliation she experienced that evening, destiny chose a different path. Only minutes after the restaurant incident, Michael received an urgent phone call from his corporate attorney. His confident expression slowly disappeared. He was informed that an unidentified shareholder carrying original ownership documents had already contacted the legal department. Without those papers, a major international merger scheduled for the following morning could collapse. The attorney insisted that finding the shareholder immediately had become the company's highest priority. When Michael learned the mysterious shareholder was none other than the waitress he had just embarrassed, disbelief washed across his face. The elegant dining room suddenly felt much smaller than before. The people who had witnessed Grace's humiliation now watched another unbelievable scene unfold. Michael walked toward the same young woman he had publicly looked down upon only moments earlier. Grace stood quietly beside a service station, still preparing dessert trays as though nothing extraordinary had happened. For the first time in many years, Michael saw beyond expensive clothing and professional titles. He saw a young woman carrying invisible burdens while still treating strangers with dignity. He remembered the fear in her eyes after the accident and realized his pride had blinded him far more than the spilled sauce ever could. Wealth had taught him how to build companies, but not how to understand people. Grace calmly handed him the folder without anger. She explained that her grandfather always believed success meant lifting others rather than standing above them. She said she had no interest in destroying the company because thousands of honest employees depended on it for their livelihoods. Her only request was simple. She wanted Carter Technologies to establish a permanent foundation providing scholarships for working students and financial assistance for caregivers supporting elderly family members. She wanted people struggling quietly, just as she had, to receive opportunities instead of judgment. Michael accepted every condition without hesitation. Weeks later, Carter Technologies announced the largest employee assistance program in its history. The Grace Walker Foundation began helping thousands of families across the United States. Nursing homes received donations, scholarships changed countless young lives, and employees finally experienced a workplace where compassion became part of company culture. Grace never returned to waitressing because she no longer needed the income, yet she continued volunteering at the same restaurant every Thanksgiving, serving meals to lonely seniors and struggling families. She believed kindness only became meaningful when shared freely. Michael often joined those volunteer events, working quietly beside the woman who had forever changed his understanding of success. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us kindness can change lives in ways money never can. Before the ending, tell us in the comments, if you were Grace, would you have forgiven Michael so quickly, or would you have walked away? We'd truly love to read your thoughts. As the first snow of winter fell gently over Chicago, Grace visited her grandmother once again. Margaret smiled proudly as she watched news reports showing families whose lives had been transformed by the foundation carrying their family name. Grace realized that her greatest inheritance had never been hidden inside a legal document or measured by millions of dollars. It had been the compassion her grandfather planted in her heart long before anyone knew her true worth. And in the end, it wasn't the millionaire who changed the waitress. It was the waitress's quiet strength, forgiveness, and kindness that changed the millionaire, and countless lives beyond him.